Welcome to the rangertell examiner bush tutorial. This bushland is the site of our tutorial today, and this, as I'm sure you've seen, is the rangertell examiner. On the underside is the tuning screw, which you can gently tune with a screwdriver. At the rear of the pad is the fine tuning knob. Setting it fully left, let's see how the examiner finds a sample of gold under this rock. Always place it under a rock since it simulates burial. The examiner is searching for it, and yes, direct hit. And a good swing too, right around, as he moves his hand forward. If you tuned a little bit to the right, you'd get a small movement. Further still, direct hit. For more range, simply extend the antenna. There's a trick here though. Each time you extend the antenna, you need to adjust the fine tuning knob. Otherwise, you'll get no response. No lock, as you can see here. The user moves forward and there's no movement from the antenna. Once you adjust the fine tuning knob a hair, you'll find no problem in obtaining a lock. The examiner is a fine MFD, or molecular frequency discriminator. Here we have a gold sample under a rock some distance away, and about 300 feet to the right is the scene of old reef workings. Gold was mined here 150 years ago. The user is walking around the examiner and gets a lock. You can see the rod turning to the reefs. He also gets a lock to the nugget, as you can see, turning towards the nugget as he crosses it. He now has two signal lines, one to the reefs and one to the nugget. He decides to walk along the signal line to the nugget. Walking along it and sidestepping left to right, you can see how the rod turns to the centre again, the imaginary signal line. There is a relationship between the examiner and the sample. And the rod, LRL, examiner, etc., will tell you where it is. The user is now setting off in search of the reefs. The examiner is still detecting it by swinging. Follow us into the bushland as we attempt to locate this reef. It is only about 100 feet away, on the right, obscured by bushland. The examiner is still whirling excitedly around, as it has a connection with the reef. To determine the extent or the outer boundary of the reef, which you can see here, the workings, walk across the reef signal line until the whirling stops. This delineates the outer boundary of the reef. Mark it, say, with a branch, as the user is doing here. He walks to the edge of the reef. Having marked the edge of the reef with a branch, to determine the depth is simple. Simply walk along, and where it turns again will give you the depth. Horizontally is the same as vertically. 7 feet along, 7 feet down. From parallel examiner to your chest, 0.1 to 0.2 parallel to your chest again. In the same way, thickness from parallel to the chest, walk out, and when the examiner straightens up, that will be the distance down. Horizontally is equal to vertical distance. Come with us now to this beautiful lake, for the second part of our tutorial. The user is placing a rock on the sample and attempting to find a lock, which he cannot. He needs to tune it with a screwdriver gently. He walks out And this time he gets a lock, but it's surrounded by rings. The target is surrounded by concentric circles, which you can see him marking as he walks out along them. This means it needs another tweak, and hey presto, this time he has tuned out the rings, and there is no response from the examiner as he walks out 90 degrees to the target along them. He then checks along the north-south line and the east-west line to make sure. This is better than walking around and attempting tangential correlation. Notice how he holds the examiner. His hand is steady as a rock, and he lets the unit do all the work. If you have trouble with twisting of your hand, or you think you're doing it unconsciously, focus on the tip. Here he seems to have obtained a lock somewhere, and it's not the colourful yacht in the background. It's quite strong, and across the water to that conical hill over there, where we know gold mining has occurred and quarrying. Now he's trying something else. He's putting a rock on the sample and edging out to where he gets a response from the examiner towards the sample. He marks that with his foot. He's crossing the north-south line after placing rocks, as you can see here, on the sample. He places another rock on it, walks out, and marks that correspondingly. It is a different length he has walked this time, as this time when he places a third rock on to simulate about a foot depth. Walks out and marks it. There has been a difference in the distance he has walked out with each rock placed upon it. This is handy to know in the field. In other words, the deeper a target is buried, the closer or further you need to walk. Also, the larger the target, the further you need to walk. Now the user is attempting to examine the configuration of the antenna. He extends it and checks for lock. It is unsuccessful. It is only when he retracts it that he gets a lock. It's handy to know in the field. Antenna length determines quite a few things. Here he's walking across the north-south line again and spies the golden sulphide hills in the background across the water, which he tries a long extended antenna with and gets some kind of a lock. He fine-tunes it and also picks up the conical hill that we talked about earlier. It's almost like fishing, isn't it? Good luck, and thanks for listening.